Good morning. So I'm Angie. I am a senior developer advocate at Applitools, also director of Test Automation University. I blog about automation strategies and techniques at angiejones.tech, and you can find me on Twitter at techgirl1908. What I want to talk about today is automated visual testing. But first, we're going to start off with a little game of Who Done It.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
But how did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away.
That's right, madam.
It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
Action.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
So, did you all notice the dead man get up and walk away? Of course you didn't, right? Because we all suffer with inattentional blindness. And with inattentional blindness is when you're so focused on a specific task or a specific thing that you don't notice the unexpected things that come into your view. So you miss them. And this is especially common in testing, especially regression testing. I had a woman tell me not too long ago that she was manually doing regression testing for her application, and they wanted to release, and they were putting out features every day. So every day she was manually regressing this application. And it wasn't until a customer told her that she realized the entire color scheme of her application had changed. And she didn't know this because she had inattentional blindness and was so focused on the task at hand and testing that task that she missed the other things that were going on in the application. So how do we solve for this? Well, usually we automate the test, right? So if we automate the test, we can be certain that the test will follow the same steps every time. It will assert against the same things every time. And it seems like a really good idea, except you're really scripting in the inattentional blindness. Your scripts are worse than the humans at doing the regression testing, because they're missing all sorts of things, and they're only going to be able to assert on what it is we tell it to assert on. Anything else is going to be missed. So, for example, let's say that you need to assert on some specific text on your application. So your script is going to say, is this text present? Yes. Right? And what it's doing is actually looking in the DOM to make sure that that text is there, which means it's going to miss things like, oh, this text is bleeding off the edge of the page, or it's covered by some other element, or it's the same color as the background. All of this stuff gets missed because of the inattentional blindness in our scripts. Now, this might seem like edge cases. You might think, oh, my application is beautiful. We don't have these types of problems. Let me tell you, I see these visual bugs in applications big and small pretty much on a daily basis. I'll show you some. So this is Cineworld. Anybody know Cineworld? They are the second largest cinema chain in the world. And they had a visual bug on their credit card page. So this is the bug. And it's asking if you want to store your card here. So you look at this, and it's comical, but from a customer's perspective, I don't know about you, I would not store my credit card on this page. Why? Because it looks like it hasn't been tested. Looks like they have not tended to this. In fact, this woman actually tweeted about this and said that they weren't doing testing. But I have a different theory here. I think that they did do testing. They probably automated the test. But automation wouldn't catch this, right? The automation is going to say, click the button that's associated with yes. It doesn't know that the labels are misaligned or anything like that. So this would get missed. Open Table. This is where you go to make reservations. So I went to Raleigh last year, and Raleigh is known for its barbecue. This is Raleigh, North Carolina. And I have a lot of friends there because I used to live there. So I went on Open Table to make reservations at my favorite barbecue joint there. And I was going to make it for a party of 7. And I put in the time, and they gave me some options. And so I went to click on the time that I wanted, and a modal popped up. And it took me a minute to figure out, what am I supposed to do here? Because there was nothing in the center. Right? So as I stared at the screen a bit, I noticed those select buttons in the upper, what's this, right? In the upper right corner. But those 2 buttons, 1, they're not aligned. 2, I don't know what it is I'm selecting. And 3, I'm not even sure if it's supposed to be 2 of them. Is that a bug? So I did what any of you would do. I opened Chrome DevTools. And I got to digging around to figure out what these buttons were. And when I did that, I found out that the labels actually were there. They were all the way over on the other side, as far away as possible from the buttons. And I figured out which one went with which, and I really wanted this barbecue, so I was able to make the reservation. But think about their typical user. Their typical user is not an engineer. They don't know how to use Chrome DevTools. They don't even know this exists. They're not going to dig around in the DOM in order to complete this reservation. So imagine how many reservations this restaurant was losing on a daily basis because of this visual bug, right? Again, automation would not catch this, our traditional scripts, right? It would go ahead and select the button. It would just click it, and that's how this probably got deployed into production. So these aren't just one-offs. This happens to your favorite tech companies as well. Happens to Amazon. Again, tests wouldn't catch that. It happens to Facebook on their main application as well as on Instagram. So this is one of my favorite ones to show. This is actually a sponsored ad, meaning someone paid money to have their content shown here. And if you think about the test for this, it's checking all of the text. Yes, 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 it's present, deploy. Happens to Twitter. Even happens to Google. The great news is that we don't have to live like this. So this can be automated. Visual validation can be automated. And what visual validation is basically snapshot testing, but with images. So it'll take a picture of your application, your screen, when it's in the state that you trust, when you first write your test. And then for every regression run, it'll take another screenshot and compare those images. If anything is different, then it'll let you know. Now, visual validation isn't something that's brand new. This has been around for a while, but older techniques were using pixel to pixel to compare the images. And that's highly flaky. So this type of testing got a bad name back in the day. Let me show you some examples. So this is the golden image at the top. This is when everything was great. The second image is a regression test. This failed. Our build failed. We couldn't deploy, right? Who can see why this failed? You can just yell it out. The button at the bottom, right? So the button is bolded at the bottom, but not at the top. Well, if you put your cursor over that button, then this is the styling effect that it has. You don't want your build to fail because the automation script happened to have the cursor over that button, right? So this was something with pixel to pixel that was really flaky and annoying, and nobody wants to write scripts that make sure that the cursor is in some position. Here's another one. What about this one? Why did this one fail? So the cursor is behind the word bad in the first one, but not the second one. Cursor's blank, right? So if it happens to take the picture when the cursor is solid, and then the regression test is not, the pixel to pixel will fail this. Definitely not what we want, highly annoying. So Applitools has created a newer, more innovative way to do this using an API that's called eyes. And the eyes API uses machine learning to be able to detect differences the way that we would as human beings, only highlighting the things that matter. So here's another game. I'm not going to let you all play because you let the dead guy walk away in the first game. But in this one, I ran this through a pixel-to-pixel algorithm, and then I ran it through eyes to see the differences. So in the pixel-to-pixel one, it pretty much highlighted everything. Every little white space was just very, very sensitive. So this is not made for testing, right? You don't want your test to fail and you get something like this. However, when I ran it through eyes, it was able to capture this like I would as a human being. So let's go ahead and add eyes to an existing test framework. So the eyes API, it doesn't replace what you already have. Whatever you already have, you just integrate this in, and you're adding visual testing to your suite. So I'm going to use Java and Selenium. It works with most of the major programming languages and most of the major automation frameworks. So if you want to use like Cypress and JavaScript, that's cool too. So first, let me show you the application that we're going to be testing. So this is a single-page app that I put together. It's 8 of my favorite books, and you can filter down on these books by title or by author. For example, if I put in the word test, I see the books that have test in the title. If I put in Lisa, I see the book where Lisa is a co-author of it. So that's pretty much the app. Let's look at a test for this. So this is a test that is searching by full title. We have agile testing. So this is what we're going to put in. It's going to return one book back. So we call this method to search, which will just enter text into the field. And then we have 2 assertions here. One to make sure that the book is actually visible, and then another assertion to make sure that that's the only book that's visible. So let's look at this isBookVisible method. So this is essentially just finding all of the visible books in the DOM, and it's going to traverse through those and compare the title with what was passed in. So if one of these books has the title, it'll return true. Otherwise, false. All right, so let's just run it. All right, it's done, it's good, everything's great, it's green, okay? So let's say that I read half of one of Sarah Drasner's or Yuna's posts on CSS stuff, and I'm feeling really good and confident, right? And so I come into the application, and I want to add a little animation to our project. So I go ahead and put this in. I don't worry about testing it because we have tests for this already. So I just go ahead and deploy it, right? And so let me show you what this app will look like for those who didn't catch that. So with a single line of CSS, I have flipped the entire application upside down. But that's okay because we have tests for this, right? So let's run our test again, and surely it's going to catch this. Oops, it didn't. Still green. Why? Of course, because that unintentional blindness we talked about. So it's only checking the DOM. Does this title exist? Yep, it sure does. And then voila. So let's go ahead and fix that, and then we're going to add the visual testing to see how we can catch this kind of stuff. All right. So I can add the visual testing right here in the test itself, but I'm going to put it at a higher level just so that I can reuse it across any test that I want to. So I'm going to create this eyes object, and we'll create a new method here that we'll call initialize. Get it? And we'll go ahead and create this thing. Yes, create. Okay. And what you need to do is just go ahead and instantiate it. Did I make this static? And you set the API key. So when you create your free Applitools account, then you get an API key that you use for all of your tests. So I actually stored this in an environment variable, so I'll just fetch that, and I called it Applitools API key. All right? So that's what you do to just initialize things. Now, for the actual assertion, let me make another method here. And we'll just call this maybe like validate window. And so the first call that you make is to tell the API to open your eyes. So you say eyes.open. And this takes the Selenium WebDriver, takes the name of your application, which I've already stored in a variable, and then the name of the test itself. So since I put this at a higher level, I don't know what the test name is going to be, so I'm going to cheat a little bit and just use the thread to get whoever called me, just use their name. All right. So I've said open your eyes. Now I say go ahead and check the window. And then finally, close your eyes. And that's it. So I can just make a call to this method from the test itself. So I'll just add this right here. So let's make sure our app is how we want it before we run this thing. So let me refresh. Okay, this is beautiful. I'm manually verifying this. Now I'm going to run the test. Now this is running on the internet, so this might be a little bit slower than the other ones. But so I'll go ahead and run the test. It takes a screenshot. It sends this screenshot to the Applitools cloud. So this is now passed. And all of the images are stored in the cloud, so I don't have to worry about managing this stuff myself. And there's even a little dashboard here. So I can look at the dashboard and look at all of my tests that have been run. And I see here that I have this new test here. And I don't even have to come here. It's just going to save this as my default. All right? Now let's go and goof up the app again. And Sarah and Yuna definitely taught me better than this, but all right. So let's run this one again. And hopefully our visual testing will catch this. So now, another screenshot, send that to the cloud, and now it's doing a comparison of those two images to see if there's any differences. Now it failed, yay. Okay, so we go back to our dashboard. Oh, let me show you this. So when it fails, you actually get this exception. So it says diffs found exception. It tells you which test failed, and there's actually even a link to go to the dashboard. So in the dashboard, we see that this test is marked as unresolved. So in the dashboard, since this is like AI driven, it's not going to say failed, it's going to say unresolved. And I like that as a human being. Like, let AI assist me. Don't let it take over, you know. And so you, the human, come here and you see, what is this? Is it really messed up, or do I just need to update my test? So we see here it highlights what's different. So it's showing that the book is wrong, and I can say, oh yes, this is definitely a bug, and I just do a thumbs down, and this is now marked as failed, okay? So let's talk about some pros and cons of using this approach. So one of the pros is that it is verifying everything. In fact, it's making sure that there's only one book, so I don't even need this assertion anymore. It's making sure that that book is visible. I don't need this assertion anymore. I no longer need a variable now since I'm only using this one time. So I'm getting rid of code at this point. And my test becomes very straightforward. All of the code in the background that I wrote to like verify that this book is visible, I no longer have to maintain that. So that's really great. That's a pro. Also, if we look at this, it is verifying everything on this screen. So not just the book itself, but also the search stuff, the title, everything on this window. So we've removed that inattentional blindness, and it's verifying everything. A con is that it's verifying everything. So if you only wanted to verify that particular book, you don't care about what else is going on the page, then this might be a little bit problematic for you, especially if this page is still under development, right? So fortunately, Eyes is very flexible. You don't have to verify at the window level. You can scope it down however you need to. So I can scope this down to just this book. So let's do that now. Did I fix the app? Nope. Okay, so we fixed the app, and we're going to go in our test, and we're going to scope this down. So let me go back here. I'm going to keep the validate window, but I'm going to add another one that says to validate just at the element level. And when we do that, instead of calling check window, we call this check element. And so this is an overloaded method that takes, basically, tell us which element it is that you want. So you pass in some locator. So I'll say, if you call me, go ahead and give me a locator here. And I'll pass that to Applitools. So same thing, open, check, close. And we go in this test, and we'll go ahead and say validate the element. And I already have that locator stored here. So, yep, the Agile testing, get locator. All right, so let's run this test again now, and we scope this to the book level. How many people say that the test is going to pass? Raise your hand. How many say it's going to fail? Okay, I didn't see any hands, so. Undecided, waiting on the edge of your seats. This is taking long. Is it done? Still running. Just make sure I didn't lose internet. I'm good. Who has music? Okay, let's check on this. So, if you notice, like, oh, this is taking really long to run, you can come and check on it too. So this shows that it's still running. I could even abort this if I wanted to, which I probably should, because it shouldn't take that long. Okay, it finally failed. All right, so this failed, and let's see what's going on here. You think it failed? Yeah, it failed. All right, let's abort this. Okay, let's try to reconnect our internet. Off. Did someone say be careful? I know that felt really risky. All right, on. I was here yesterday.
Do you remember the password?
Something about a bat cave.
Errorman 6.
Okay.
Yeah, this speaker Wi-Fi is not very...
Not very, okay, let's do that then.
Just connect to my phone.
All right, bat cave. And
Iron Man sucks.
like
that should
such.
work.
Okay.
Oh, it's still not connected. Okay.
Wow.
Make the best of what you got. You gotta take what you got, girl. Wow.
It doesn't
That's
like,
not me anymore.
it doesn't like the bat cave.
It doesn't like the bat cave?
Okay, let's try this again.
Oh my god, he doesn't like the bat cave.
Come on, come on.
Can you turn the Wi-Fi off and turn it back on? Okay, we can do this. Okay, just focus. Just gotta focus and stare at it blankly. If you stare at it, it usually comes on faster. Oh wait, that's not how it works.
Okay.
Okay. Really
All right,
if
let's
it
see what's
works.
going on. Okay, stop spinning.
Is it telling you to fuck off? It's telling you to fuck off, Angie. That's how it does it. It's with loading spinners.
Okay,
Okay, I'm leaving.
thank you. All right. So, this is marked as unresolved. Let's see if it actually did something. Yes, all right. So this is why this failed this time, because we changed the test, right? So our original image was of the full screen, and then the new image was of the book. So this is going to happen, right? You update your test. You say, oh, I want to verify it at a different level, or the app has changed in some way. That's okay. The way that you update your baseline is simply by pressing this thumbs up and saving it. And now that will become the new baseline that we test against. Okay? Okay. Woo. All right. So, what do we want to do now? So we've seen how we validate an entire window. We've seen how we validate just the element. So some pros and cons of just at the element level, right? So, for example, we were only verifying that one book. Let's say that we typed in agile testing here, and this was the result, meaning filtering is not working, and everything is just still there. Would that test pass or fail? Pass. Who says fail? Okay. The test is going to pass. Why? Because we've said only verify that book. So it's going to find this element. It's going to say, yep, this looks gorgeous. Pass. And it didn't catch the fact that everything is missing here, right? So the great thing is, again, it doesn't replace what you already have. You can couple this. So I can add back that other assertion that was making sure that there's only one book. So I can say, go ahead and verify this element, and then also make sure that this book is the only one that comes back. So I can couple this. Or I can not do it at this book level, but I can scope the element level to this entire area, maybe the div or something like that. That way, it'll make sure that this entire area only contains that book without verifying the entire page. So you have some flexibility here. All right? Now, what about if your app is dynamic? For example, what if the order of these books changes every time you load this? Well, you might think that you can't use visual testing, but haha, you can, okay? So let's go back and mess with the code again. So in here, I'm just going to, let's write a new test. Let's write a new test. So we're going to do a new test here, and this time we just want to like test the whole layout. So I don't have to do anything. I'll just say validate the window, right? So we'll go ahead and run this. Everybody cross their fingers. Why does it say parsing? All right, finally. Okay, so it's going to run this. It's taking a picture of the entire window. We know the drill. It sends this up to the cloud. All right. Now, while that's running, I'm going to go in here and change the order of like maybe the first two books. So the order is going to be different. And then we'll run this again. Did y'all cross y'all fingers? Let's find some music. Something that won't get this kicked off of YouTube. Oh, this is so exciting, right? Okay, all of the all of the Wi-Fi things have now left me. The speaker one is not here, or the back key. All right. I hear somebody running to my rescue.
Oh, it turned off because no one connected to it.
Okay.
My phone really.
Oh, here's this one.
Okay.
All right.
I don't control that. Am I that Wi-Fi?
All right.
Am I
So
every
let's
Wi-Fi?
stop this, and let's try it
Yes.
again. All right. All right.
I
Moving
am
much
the Wi-Fi.
faster.
I must not leave. I get it. Okay. I'm right here.
Okay.
Told you I wouldn't leave. I'm
No,
sorry I
it's-
threw
it's
things at
okay.
your hair. That was supposed to be at
I
me.
think it's okay.
Is it working? I don't know who's laughing, but I'm not even doing anything. I'm just living over here. Can you try the back cave?
Yes.
It's kind of weird that it doesn't. Okay, that's normal because you disconnected from the Wi-Fi. Are you mad because I threw things at your hair?
No.
Thanks, sorry. I really suck at basketball. I was a goalkeeper. I know.
Okay, let's forget the Wi-Fi. I'm going to talk you through this. So, what we did, we're doing the layout, right? So it's validating the window. And so we'll have the screenshot like we had the first time, right? And then when we come in here and switch the order of these books, you know what'll happen, right? So let's just save this. And the app now goes from this 4409 book being first to it being second. right? So, voila. Now, when we first ran the test, it's going to just take that screenshot or whatever. But let's say, okay, we want this to be in dynamic mode. Like, we don't care about the order of the books. We just want to make sure that structurally everything is okay. So we can do that, and we can do it at the test level. We can do it higher up. But let's say for this particular test, we don't care, but the other ones we do. So we can do a eyes dot set match level. And these match levels essentially let you choose which algorithm you want to use to verify the pictures. So I can say match level dot layout, and this is the dynamic one. So if I were to run this test again, then this test would pass in the dashboard, even though the books are in a different order. Now, let's see if it lets me go over here. Okay, so in here, let's pretend that this is the two images or whatever. I could even do like a preview here and say preview some different match levels. So the dynamic one would pass with the layout match level, but I could say show me this in like strict, which is the default match level that we've been using, and then it'll show you like the differences that those two books were in different orders. There's also two other kind, exact, which does pixel to pixel, but I already told you don't use that. And then the other one is content, which makes the API go colorblind, and it only verifies the content, not any of the coloring on the thing. Other cool things that you can do here, you can ignore certain parts of the screen. So there are these annotations here. Ignore a certain region, or you can mix and match them. Like say, for example, maybe you want to verify the whole page at a strict level, but maybe the books you want at a dynamic level. So we could just do something like ignore region here, and then we could highlight any part of the picture that we want ignored, or if we use the layout one, then it would be like, okay, only verify this part of the image, just the layout of it, the dynamic part. I use the ignore a lot on like mobile testing, so that header at the top that has like the time and my battery level and stuff like that, I say ignore that kind of thing. So it's really powerful what you can do here. There's also this root cause analysis. So I could highlight like anything on the picture, if these two failed, and I could say, show me the root cause. And that will show you the differences in the HTML and the CSS that caused this visual bug. So you can go ahead and say, oh, okay, I know what happened here. I get it. All right. And the other thing I want to show you is about cross-platform. So this not only runs on Chrome, it runs on multiple different browsers, also different mobile devices as well. Now, cross-platform testing is a pain. It is very annoying to write. There's a lot of like conditional logic. If the elements change, you know, like hamburger menus or anything changes, you have to account for that in your scripts. Different flows for web versus the mobile. It's also a pain to run them. But Eyes has just now created what's called the visual grid. And the visual grid, I love this feature. It's so powerful. So it lets you run your tests cross-platform, but visually. So instead of executing this test across all of the different browsers and platforms, you specify, okay, here's my configuration. Here's what I want to run against. Here's all the browsers, all the widths and heights, all the devices I want to run against. And what this will do is run your test once, let's say like on Chrome or whatever. It'll run it once, and when you make the call in that test to say check window or check element or whatever, it's going to grab the DOM and all of the assets, so the CSS or whatever else it needs to render, and it's going to then splash that across all of the configurations that you said in that state. So you don't have to execute those steps again on all of those different things, because most of the times what we see are visual bugs on cross-platform testing. If you don't have the visual testing in there, you end up missing it. So the return on investment for the cross-platform testing is pretty low. However, you add in the visual testing, and now you see where you get these bugs because of the viewport changes and the different sizes and stuff. So in its current state, renders across all of these different configurations, and you see what's going on without actually having to execute that. So it makes it a whole lot faster to do. For example, if your test had to like set up a user and create a profile and all of that, you don't have to execute those steps on all platforms. You just grab the state and render it. So let me show you. Fortunately, if I'm on the internet, I can show you. Let's see. All right, let's see if it'll pull up from my cache, because I actually ran that one. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we'll see if this comes up or not. But, oh, I can show you the code for this. So here is my configuration file. And here I basically specify, like, yeah, I want to run against Firefox and Chrome in 800 by 600 and 1200 by 800. And then I want to run against iPhone in both landscape and, what's the other mode? Portrait, and same for Galaxy. And so this is my configuration. I run this, and what this will do, this is not coming up, but what this will do, you see how it says 8 pass right here? This will be 8 different tests that it ran. And it shows you the pictures of all of the different configurations. And so this is a cool way to run your cross-platform testing. All right? Okay, so that is it. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter, techgirl1908, or you can contact me through my website, angiejones.tech. I think you all got the gist, right? Even without the internet? Okay, cool. All right. So thank you so much.